What would you do if the person meant to protect your family became its greatest threat? When I went into early labor, desperate and in pain, I begged my mother-in-law for help. Instead, she slapped me. Then without warning, she shoved me, sending me crashing to the ground. Pain exploded through my body as I lay there bleeding, my vision fading. But before I lost consciousness, I saw something. Something that changed everything. This wasn't just cruelty. It was deliberate. And when I woke up, I knew she would never get away with this. When I went into early labor, desperate to get to the hospital, my cruel mother-in-law refused to help. The pain twisted through me like a knife, and as I reached for my phone to call an ambulance, she snatched it from my hands. Then without warning, she struck me. The slap burned across my cheek, a sharp sting of humiliation and shock. Before I could react, she shoved me, hard. I lost my balance, tumbling backward, landing on the cold ground. Pain shot through my body, my vision blurring as everything spiraled into darkness. But when I woke up moments later, what I saw left me completely stunned. My name is Sarah Thompson, and I'm 32 years old. I work as a creative designer for a local publishing company, though right now I'm on maternity leave. My husband, Jake, and I live in a cozy home in the suburbs of New Haven. A home that should have been my sanctuary, filled with wedding photos, baby items, and pastel-colored walls. Instead, it often felt like a war zone. Jake's mother, Karen, and his sister Tiffany lived next door, their presence a constant weight pressing down on me. From the day I married into the family, they made it clear I was never good enough. To them, I wasn't a lawyer. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't the wife they had envisioned for Jake. Karen never missed an opportunity to remind me of my so-called shortcomings, and Tiffany thrived on making me feel like an outsider. Holidays and family gatherings became battlegrounds, where I endured passive-aggressive comments and judgmental glances. If I decorated the house in a way she disapproved of, Karen would call it cheap. If I dressed casually instead of wearing a polished, formal outfit, she'd sneer about how I didn't represent the family properly. But Tiffany? She took it further. She blamed me for taking her brother's attention away from her, and she made sure I knew it. Now, with Jake away on a business trip just 2 weeks before my due date, my anxiety was worse than ever. I had tried to be strong, to smile when he kissed me goodbye, but deep down, a quiet fear gnawed at me. Mrs. Harper, our elderly neighbor, had warned me. "Sarah," she had said, her voice low and serious. "Families like that can be dangerous. Keep your phone close. And if you feel threatened, record everything." I had laughed back then, brushing it off. Karen and Tiffany can be cruel, but they'd never actually crossed the line. I had been so wrong. That evening, I tried to keep myself busy, folding tiny baby clothes, smoothing down the soft blankets in the nursery. I pictured Jake holding our baby for the first time, the overwhelming joy in his eyes. The thought made me smile, but the silence in the house felt heavier than usual. I was about to head to bed when the first sharp pain ripped through me. It wasn't just a mild cramp. This was different, deeper. I sucked in a breath, pressing a hand to my belly. Just Braxton Hicks, I told myself. Nothing to panic about. But when I stood up, a searing pain shot through my lower abdomen. Then I felt it, a warm trickle down my leg. I froze, dread coiling in my stomach. Slowly, I looked down. Blood. A sickening wave of panic crashed over me. Number, it's too soon. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking as I called Jake, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. Terror clawed its way up my throat. I needed an ambulance. I dialed 911, but the line was busy. The storm outside had knocked out power in parts of the city. Emergency services were overwhelmed. I couldn't wait. My baby couldn't wait. With no other choice, I turned toward the one option I had left. Karen and Tiffany. My legs trembled as I made my way to their door, holding my stomach with one hand and the phone in the other. The short distance felt like miles. I was drenched in sweat by the time I reached their porch. I rang the doorbell and pounded on the door, tears streaming down my face. "Karen! Tiffany! Please, I need help!" The porch light flicked on, and I heard footsteps approaching. The door swung open, revealing Karen in a silk nightgown. Tiffany stood behind her, holding her phone like she was ready to record me for some twisted entertainment. Karen's eyes scanned me, and instead of concern, I saw irritation. "What on earth is this nonsense, Sarah?" she said, folding her arms. "Why are you banging on my door at this hour?" "I'm bleeding," I gasped, leaning against the door frame for support. "I need to go to the hospital. Please call an ambulance." Karen scoffed, her eyes cold and dismissive. "You're overreacting. Aren't you supposed to know your own condition? You're the one carrying the baby." Tiffany smirked and lifted her phone, pointing it at me as if I were some pathetic spectacle for her social media. "Look at you, Sarah. Just a designer and you can't even handle pregnancy." I clutched my stomach, my vision blurring as another wave of pain shot through me. "Please, I'm begging you. I don't have time." Karen's expression hardened. "You think you can just disrupt my night like this? I won't let you ruin Jake's career by creating a scene." Without warning, she slapped me across the face, the sharp sting sending me stumbling backward. My cheek burned, and before I could process it, she pushed me off the porch. I landed hard on the cold stone pathway, pain shooting through my back and abdomen. Tiffany's mocking laughter echoed behind me. "You're pathetic, Sarah. Go deliver the baby yourself." I lay there breathless and bleeding as their front door slammed shut. My fingers fumbled for my phone, and through the haze of pain, I remembered Mrs. Harper's advice. With trembling hands, I opened the recording app and pressed start. I had no strength left to get up. All I could do was lie there, hoping someone would find me before it was too late. I don't know how long I lay there, but the cool night air was seeping into my skin, making me shiver. The cold stone beneath me felt like ice, and the pain in my abdomen was becoming unbearable. I tried to stay awake, but my body was giving up. The weight of exhaustion pressed down on me, pulling me toward unconsciousness. My mind was a fog of fear and desperation. Just when I thought this was the end, I heard the faint sound of footsteps approaching. Someone was running toward me. The familiar voice of Mrs. Harper broke through my daze. "Oh my God, Sarah! Stay with me!" she cried, crouching beside me. Her warm hands gripped my shoulder gently but firmly, trying to keep me conscious. "I'm calling an ambulance right now." I heard her voice, but it felt like it was coming from a distance. Her hands shook as she dialed 911, giving the emergency operator our location. "There's heavy bleeding and she's unconscious. Hurry!" Her voice cracked, but she never let go of me. "Sarah, don't close your eyes. Help is coming," she pleaded, stroking my hair like a mother comforting her child. I wanted to respond, to tell her I was trying, but my lips wouldn't move. The pain was too much, and darkness crept further into my vision until everything went black. Blinding lights pierced through my eyelids as I slowly drifted back to consciousness. The sharp, sterile scent of disinfectant filled my lungs, and the rhythmic beeping of machines echoed in the stillness. A soft blanket draped over me, its warmth barely reaching the chill inside my bones. My body felt heavy, distant, as if I weren't fully there. I blinked, my vision swimming until a figure came into focus, a nurse, her kind face hovering above me, adjusting the IV in my arm. "You're awake," she said gently. "Try not to move too much. You've been through a lot." A deep, primal panic surged through me. "My baby?" The words barely escaped my lips, raw and fragile. My chest tightened, fear clawing at my ribs. The nurse placed a reassuring hand over mine, her touch warm, steady. "The baby is fine," she said with a soft smile. "We had to perform an emergency C-section, but you have a healthy baby girl. She's in the neonatal unit for observation, but she's stable." Relief crashed over me in waves, my breath hitching as tears spilled down my cheeks. She's alive. After everything, after the horror, the pain she had made it. I closed my eyes, silently thanking every force in the universe for sparing her life. Then, the door creaked open. A tall man in a police uniform stepped inside, his gaze sharp yet compassionate. He moved with quiet authority, pulling a chair beside my bed before speaking. "Mrs. Thompson," he introduced himself, his voice firm but calm. "I'm Detective Harris. We've already reviewed some of the evidence." He reached into his bag, retrieving a sealed plastic pouch. Inside was my phone. "We found this at the scene, and the recording you made, it's crucial to the case." My throat tightened as he placed it gently on the bedside table. "The audio captured everything," he continued. "Karen and Tiffany refusing to help, the slap, your fall, your cries for help. It's strong enough to build a solid case against them." A mix of relief and lingering fear swirled inside me. Then, another figure appeared at the doorway, Mrs. Harper. Her face was pale, etched with worry, but the relief in her eyes was unmistakable. Without hesitation, she stepped forward and took my hand, squeezing it gently. "I was worried sick about you," she murmured. "I stayed here all night just to make sure you were okay." A lump formed in my throat. "You saved me." Mrs. Harper shook her head. "No, Sarah. You saved yourself by recording what happened." A determined glint flashed in her eyes. "Karen and Tiffany will pay for this, mark my words." Detective Harris nodded. "They already are. We've taken both of them into custody. They're being charged with criminal negligence, aiding assault, and endangering the life of a pregnant woman." The weight of his words settled over me, heavy yet freeing. Justice. For the first time since that terrible night, I felt the grip of fear begin to loosen. I let out a shaky breath, my body trembling with the release of it all. "Thank you," I whispered, though the words felt inadequate for the gratitude welling inside me. Then footsteps, hurried, desperate. The door burst open, and there he was, Jake. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loosened, and his usually neat hair was a disheveled mess. Dark circles clung beneath his eyes, evidence of exhaustion, of panic, of a man who had rushed straight here without pause. "Sarah," he gasped. His breath was ragged as he stumbled toward me, his hands trembling as they cupped my face, careful, so painfully careful to avoid the bruises. His fingers brushed over my skin like he was afraid I might break. "I came as soon as I could," he choked out, his voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." Tears welled in his eyes, raw and unrestrained. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw the man I had fallen in love with, the man who had unknowingly left me to fend for myself, but who was here now, broken by what had happened. The worst was over, but there was still so much to say. I managed a faint smile. "We're okay. The baby's okay." Jake leaned in, resting his forehead against mine. His breath was shaky, and I felt his tears mix with mine. "I didn't protect you. I should have been here." Detective Harris cleared his throat, breaking the emotional moment. "Mr. Thompson, I think it's important for you to hear the full recording of what happened that night." He placed a small speaker on the bedside table and pressed play. The room filled with the haunting sounds of my desperate pleas, Karen's cold dismissal, Tiffany's mocking laughter, and the sharp slap that sent me to the ground. Jake's grip on my hand tightened as the recording continued. His knuckles turned white, and tears streamed down his face when he heard me begging for help. When the audio ended, the silence in the room was suffocating. Jake's head hung low, and for a moment he didn't move. But then his shoulders straightened, and a look of fierce determination replaced the sadness in his eyes. "They did this to you," he said through gritted teeth. "My own family." He turned to the detective. "What happens now?" Detective Harris remained calm but firm. "We've already obtained confessions from both Karen and Tiffany during questioning. Karen admitted that she couldn't stand the idea of you having a child with Sarah, believing the baby would steal you away from her. Tiffany said she wanted to teach your wife a lesson for taking her brother's attention." Jake clenched his fists. "They'll pay for this, whatever it takes. I won't let them get away with it. They won't." Detective Harris assured him. Given the evidence we have, the recording, the medical reports, and their confessions, the prosecution is confident they'll face serious consequences. 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting in the courtroom, Jake's hand tightly gripping mine as we waited for the verdict. The air was heavy with anticipation. Reporters filled the back rows, their pens poised over notepads, waiting for the story that had captured public attention. Across the room, Karen and Tiffany sat stiffly, their faces devoid of emotion, but their eyes occasionally darting toward us. Karen still wore her air of superiority as though she believed she could talk her way out of this, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. The judge cleared his throat, and the courtroom fell silent. He began reading the charges: criminal negligence, aiding and abetting assault, and endangering the life of a pregnant woman. Karen shifted in her seat, her fingers clenching the sides of the wooden bench as if bracing for impact. Tiffany sat motionless, staring straight ahead. Given the overwhelming evidence, including recorded audio and visual proof, as well as the defendant's confessions, the judge continued, this court finds both Karen Thompson and Tiffany Thompson guilty. There was a collective gasp from the courtroom audience. Karen's expression finally cracked and she covered her face with her hands. Tiffany, on the other hand, kept her composure, but her eyes betrayed the storm of emotions raging within her. The judge's voice was steady as he announced the sentences. Karen Thompson, 3 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Her deliberate actions had almost cost 2 lives, and her punishment reflected the severity of her crime. Tiffany Thompson, 2 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, and mandatory psychological counseling. The judge cited her lesser role and age as mitigating factors, but she wasn't walking away unscathed. The weight of the verdict settled over me like a warm blanket, bringing a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. As the officers led Karen and Tiffany out in handcuffs, Karen turned back, her eyes filled with hatred, but her glare had lost its power. She was no longer the woman who had pushed me to the ground and left me to suffer. She was just another criminal facing justice. I exhaled, leaning into Jake's shoulder as relief washed over me. "It's over," I whispered. Jake kissed the top of my head. "They can't hurt you or our baby anymore." The rich aroma of fresh coffee filled the kitchen as golden sunlight streamed through the wide windows of our new home in Evergreen Hills. The cream-colored walls, adorned with family photos, reflected the warmth of a fresh start, and the laughter of our 1-year-old daughter, Grace, echoed through the house like the sweetest melody. She toddled across the living room, chasing a toy ball, her tiny giggles filling every corner of our world. "Lunchtime, Grace!" I called, placing a bowl of warm soup and her favorite mashed carrots on the table. She let out a delighted squeal, stumbling forward on chubby legs, her arms reaching for me. I scooped her up, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead, marveling at how strong and full of life she had become. The sound of the front door opening made me look up. "I'm home!" Jake's voice rang through the house, warm and familiar. He set his briefcase down near the door and crossed the room in a few strides, pressing a kiss to my lips before lifting Grace into his arms. "How was work?" I asked, smiling as he twirled her around, making her giggle. "Busy, but I couldn't wait to get back to you two." His transfer to a local tech company had been the best decision we had ever made. The long hours and stress of his old job were gone, replaced with something better, something that gave him the time to truly be here with us. We had left behind the toxicity of the past, and now, every moment felt lighter. As I reached for my phone, an unread email caught my attention. "Oh, we got a message from Mrs. Harper," I said, glancing up. "She says she's proud of us and hopes our new life continues to shine brighter." Jake's expression softened. "We owe her more than she'll ever know. If it weren't for her that night, things could have ended so much worse." I nodded, my heart swelling with gratitude. But we made it through. That evening, we sat together on the porch, watching Grace play in the garden as the sun dipped below the rolling hills. The scent of blooming flowers drifted in the warm air, the sky painted in soft shades of pink and gold. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something that had once seemed impossible: peace. The weight of fear, of uncertainty, of the past that had once haunted me. It was gone. "You know," I murmured, resting my head against Jake's shoulder, "I accepted that part-time design job I told you about. They're flexible with my schedule, and it's exactly the creative work I love." His face lit up with pride. "That's amazing, Sarah," he said, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "I'm so proud of you." In the garden, Grace squealed with laughter as she chased soap bubbles, her tiny hands reaching toward the sky. I watched her, a smile spreading across my lips. We had come so far. The road ahead would still have challenges, that was life. But we were stronger now. We had endured the storm and stepped into the sunlight. And as I held Jake's hand, watching our daughter twirl beneath the golden light of dusk, I realized that this right here was what happiness truly felt like. Not just survival, but freedom. A new beginning. In many families, the role of a mother-in-law carries weight, tradition, and sometimes unspoken power. Karen embodied that power, using it not to nurture, but to control. She saw Sarah not as a daughter-in-law, but as a threat, someone who disrupted the hierarchy she had built over years. Tiffany, mirroring her mother, took on the same mindset, ensuring Sarah always felt like an outsider. But here's the truth: family should never be a battleground. In many cultures, loyalty to family is valued above all else, even at the cost of individual well-being. Women, in particular, are expected to endure hardships within their in-laws' homes, maintaining silence for the sake of peace. Sarah's situation isn't uncommon. Countless women find themselves trapped in toxic family dynamics, unable to speak out for fear of judgment, isolation, or retaliation. But silence is what allows abuse to continue. Sarah did something revolutionary. She documented the abuse. She took control of her own narrative, ensuring that Karen and Tiffany couldn't twist the truth in their favor. In doing so, she not only secured justice for herself, but sent a clear message. This cycle ends here. So many people go through life believing they have to tolerate cruelty because that's just how family is. But at what point does that become an excuse for harm? Sarah's story challenges that notion. It forces us to ask, when do we stop enduring and start fighting back? When do we say, enough is enough? If you were in Sarah's position, would you have forgiven Jake's family after everything they did? Should toxic relatives ever get a second chance? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for the next one.